Hey, what's up guys? It's that time of year again and we have a new iPhone in town, the iPhone XS. I mean 10s. It's supposed to be the fastest iPhone ever with an even better camera, but of course that comes with a price. So what are you actually getting here, and are the differences worth an upgrade? I'm Will for GSM Arena and this is our iPhone XS review. I've got to be honest here, a lot of people won't think twice about upgrading to the latest and greatest iPhone. If you like Apple products and can afford the price tag, it makes sense, but this review is more for people that are on the fence about it. Apple has remained faithful to last year's design. It's a luxurious glass-on-glass build with a stainless steel edge. In fact, they're so faithful that if you put this year's iPhone next to its predecessor, they look almost identical. Apple tends to find a design that works and stick to it. The camera bump doesn't quite match up though, which should make last year's cases a bit of a tight fit. Apple says that the XS should be more resistant to physical trauma, thanks to the new Gorilla Glass 6. That said, judging by some drop tests we've seen on the internet, you should probably put some protection on it just in case. Repairs can cost as much as a new mid-range phone. The phone has slightly better water protection this year, earning an IP68 rating over IP67. It's not a huge jump, but it allows for a little extra peace of mind in deeper water. On top of that, the XS has a truly excellent screen. Actually, the same as last year's. The 5.8-inch OLED display is really bright, has wonderful sunlight legibility, and some of the best color accuracy we've seen on the smartphone. The True Tone feature makes things look even better by adjusting the white balance according to the ambient light. There's only one glaring issue: you still can't hide the notch, or even watch full screen content without the notch cutting into it. Considering that most Android phones with a notch can pull this off, and it could easily be fixed with software, the only reason could be stubbornness from Apple. Another example is the headphone solution. This year, there isn't even a 3.5mm adapter in the box. Apple hopes people will switch to Bluetooth headphones or shell out $9 for a dongle at the Apple Store. At least the stereo speakers are improved. The earpiece speaker is bigger and louder, so the setup is more balanced than the iPhone Xs. The left and right channels will even switch when you turn your screen upside down, keeping the sound consistent. With a battery of around 2600 mAh, one area which isn't stellar is battery life, though it is similar to last year's iPhone X. The XS scored a 72-hour endurance rating in our proprietary tests, lower than most of the phones we've reviewed so far this year. However, if you do get low, you can charge back up really fast, provided that you spend some money on one of Apple's fast MacBook chargers. That bulky charger can get you from 0 to 55% in half an hour, but the one provided in the iPhone's box only charges to 22% in the same amount of time, about as fast as a wireless charger. There have been reports of issues with charging, where the phone won't begin to charge unless you wake it up first. Luckily, our unit didn't have any of these problems. But since there hasn't been any official statement from Apple yet, we don't know how many phones are affected. We hope there's a software fix coming pretty soon. Moving on, the iPhone XS runs on Apple's latest chipset, the 7nm A12 Bionic. On top of being faster, it also comes with a more powerful GPU, a new neural engine, and a new image signal processor, or ISP, for the camera. In benchmarks, the iPhone XS tops the charts, scoring higher than anything we've seen from an Apple or an Android phone. Compared to last year's iPhone X, it looks to be about 15% more powerful. Just remember that since the phone is glass instead of heat-dispersing metal, it will warm up under heavy use. Some of you which expected battery life improvements with the new processor may be disappointed, but you have to remember, we're getting the same battery life this year with much better performance, so that's the benefit of the new fabrication process. The new chipset works together with the newest Apple software, iOS 12, to create a lightning-fast experience when using the phone. Everything feels much faster than on iOS 11, including animations, app launching times, and browsing menus. iOS 12 introduces a few changes here and there as well. Screen time gives you statistics about the time you spend on your phone or in different apps. You can set limits for yourself here too, if you're trying to break a bad habit. There's also a new app called Measure, which uses augmented reality and motion detection to measure objects. It isn't totally accurate though. And finally, Apple's infrared scanning Face ID, the only biometric way to unlock this phone, is faster now thanks to AI. And you can add a second face or an alternative appearance too. The iPhone XS has a similar 12-megapixel dual camera setup as the iPhone X. The wide-angle camera is f1.8, while the telephoto sits behind an f2.4 lens, both with OIS. However, this time the main shooter has larger pixels, which should allow in more light for less noise and better dynamic range. The camera also benefits from the new image signal processor in the chipset. It eliminates shutter lag and enables a new smart HDR through image stacking. The camera interface hasn't really been changed at all. Unfortunately, to modify the image or video settings, you still have to exit the camera and go into the phone's settings menu. But regardless, the daylight samples we snapped with the iPhone XS don't disappoint. They're plenty sharp, with nice rendition, accurate colors, and low noise. With Smart HDR on, the camera stacks multiple frames to improve dynamic range and contrast. On top of that, there's more fine detail captured, and sharpening looks more natural. We suggest leaving this mode on when shooting. When zooming in, the telephoto cam produces images of almost the same caliber as the wide-angle one. There's just a bit narrower dynamic range. In low light, the new sensor working with Smart HDR offers noticeable improvements. Thanks to the OIS, bigger sensor pixels, and image stacking, the iPhone XS succeeds in producing great, noise-free low-light images with even exposure, and that's while using a higher ISO and faster shutter speeds than the iPhone X. Unfortunately, the iPhone XS still won't use the OIS telephoto camera when zooming in low light. It digitally zooms and crops the output of the main camera to achieve the zoom effect, which takes its toll on image quality. In portrait mode, the results are quite good. Separation has improved and the bokeh effect is a bit more natural than it was on the iPhone X. The blur strength is adjustable afterwards too. For selfies, the iPhone XS has the same 7-megapixel f2.2 front-facing camera as on the iPhone X. Smart HDR is also available here. There's plenty of resolve detail, though not the best we've seen, and the contrast and colors are very good. One thing that stands out though is that there's a touch of skin smoothing beautification, which you can't switch off. It only appears when Smart HDR is not turned on. Here's a comparison of a selfie taken with the iPhone X and the iPhone XS with HDR on and off. The sample with HDR on is really sharp, even better than the iPhone X's. But even with HDR off, image quality is not bad at all. You can take portraits with the selfie camera and subject separation is excellent. You can now choose different portrait lighting options for the front cam too. It can now record 1080p videos at 60 FPS, but only the 30 FPS ones benefit from Smart HDR. And the new always-on video stabilization works well, but the field of view is so narrow that it's pretty hard to fit yourself in the frame. 4K videos at 60 FPS are quite excellent, from both the wide-angle or the telephoto cam. There's impressive dynamic range, OIS, plenty of detail, good contrast, and nice colors. 4K videos taken at lower frame rates as well as 1080p videos have the same impressive quality. Plus, they enjoy additional cinematic video stabilization and expanded dynamic range thanks to the Smart HDR. But on top of the great visuals, the iPhone XS can capture sound with wide stereo separation. This creates a sense of space, giving a richer sound. So, the iPhone XS. Without a doubt, it's the best iPhone to come out so far, bringing the best performance on the planet, a flagship-level camera, top-notch stereo speakers, and an awesome OLED display. The only real shortcomings to speak of are the average battery life, and the fact that Apple wants you to give them more money for a decent charger and a headphone adapter. Of course, the money is the biggest issue here. The XS is selling for more than $1,000 or euros depending on where you live. For this amount of cash, you could buy a decent mid-range phone, and a lot of cool stuff on top of that. Is Apple turning into a luxury brand? I don't know how I feel about that. But regardless, people will of course buy the latest and greatest iPhone, and I also wouldn't blame them. It smooths out the kinks from last year's iPhone X and sets the bar for the rest of the smartphone world to aspire to. If you're a fan of the Apple ecosystem and are due for an upgrade, the iPhone XS definitely deserves our recommendation. Thanks for watching. If you're looking for a larger screen, be sure to tune into our channel for our upcoming iPhone XS Max review. See you next time.